This is Natalie, and you are listening to my podcast. And today we have a special guest. Jeff and I actually met in a really interesting way. Um, so there's an app called Focus Mate, and it's meant to help you focus. Name it like i.e. the name, right? And you are paired with someone, and it can be anyone from all over the world. Like I've worked with people in India, in China, in like depending on the time of day, right? And then we got paired up, and the whole premise of the app is that your body doubling with someone to help you focus and zero in on what you're doing. So Jeff and I got paired up and we just got to chatting. And I was like, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? And he's like, sure, why not? After he listened into a live.
Yeah, Focus Me is interesting in that, like, some of the people I've met, and I usually, like, I just want to focus and do work, but every now and then you meet somebody that kind of changes everything, and you were one of those people
Yeah.
that you just feel like, okay, there's a kid, like, we're going on, we got the same vibe here, and
Yeah.
there's a connection. And
Yeah.
actually, just to give a shout out to another person, this dude Fikey, who was he's a musician, he's a DJ, and I met him on Focus Mate, and his music is insanely good.
Mhm.
And now, so when I go on Focus Mate, I listen to his music and then meet other people.
Look at
Good
that.
stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so Jeff is a leadership coach, and I know you don't, yeah, according to your website, coach is not the greatest way to describe you, right?
No, no. There are a lot of coaches out there. And listen, my background is as an entrepreneur, and so I help people avoid all the mistakes I made in the past. And so I focus on inspiring people to be better leaders, and helping them uh, grow,
Right.
at whatever stage they're in.
Okay, that's cool. So let's just start there. What would you say is leadership? Like how would you help listeners conceptualize that?
Yeah, leadership, people think of leadership, first of all, as a title. It's not a title. It has nothing to do with your title. In fact, it doesn't even matter if you have a job, right? Leadership is a behavior,
Mhm.
and it's a behavior that is actually best exemplified by mothers, right? Like, because a mother needs to be organized. They need to get people to listen to them, to respect them, and to get the things done that need to get done.
Yeah.
And uh, and that isn't always just yelling and screaming and go do it, because you get defiance there. And so
Yeah.
leadership is that behavior that builds trust and inspiration, and helps and has people want to do things for you,
Okay.
like you.
You know, I like that because it really for like a good leader anyway in my mind would really help people make strides and move forward in a way that maybe they're not even aware of, or they're not sure of what they might need, but they can either lead by example or lead by instruction if someone is coachable. Like there's so many different elements that go into it. We can talk about a good leader and to at some point, but let's talk about a bad leader, because when we hear about leaders, sometimes we hear things like, I mean, Stalin, right? You get
Yeah.
leaders like Hitler. You sometimes leaders are not. I mean, we have interesting leaders here in our state, in our countries, right? In our great United States.
Yeah.
So how do we frame ourselves? Is it just a character thing? Like, how do we approach leadership in a way that kind of helps us yield our power, but not in that way?
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Sorry, I'm breaking. There are so many answers to this, but
Sure. Yeah.
uh, I actually write a newsletter, and I do some stuff with it, and I'm in the midst of doing my Monday one, which is about four characteristics of bad leaders.
Mm,
And there are four things a leader needs to do.
mhm.
Uh, One is make decisions, make efficient decisions.
Yeah.
Two is validate whether those decisions are good.
Mhm.
Three is create processes around those decisions. And fourth is to create accountability.
Mhm.
Now, this doesn't mean a leader of 50 or 100 people or two people. It could just be yourself, right?
Right.
Like, every day you've got a lot of decisions. So how am I going to make efficient decisions that lead to growth, whether it's personal growth or business growth?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to validate that that's the right decision?
Right.
And, then creating process and then accountability. There are, the worst leaders are the ones who can't make decisions, or some of the worst leaders, right? Like, it stalls everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we all know people like that, right? You give them, what should I do? I don't know. Maybe we do some research. Let's come back to it. And
Yeah.
then, there are two types of people. If you're like a battery, right? One
Yeah.
energizes and inspires you, and one sucks the energy out of you.
Yeah.
And the ones that inspire you are the leaders that can make decisions and move forward and grow and empower. The ones that don't are the ones that can't make decisions, that demean you, that suck the energy out of you, that there's always a problem that they're focused on and never the solution.
Yeah.
I one term I always use are you a problem admirer or are you a problem solver? Right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem solvers, they see a problem, they proactively address it and come up with a solution. Problem admirers love talking about problems, and that's all they do is talk about problems. And so, the problem admirers are the tough people,
Yeah.
and it's tough to work for them. It's tough to work with them.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's really cute that you're calling them problem admirers.
Yeah.
I love that
Well,
you're being so PC about it, but they're
yeah.
complainers. They really are.
They are. There's
Yeah.
actually three. There are three. So there's a problem solvers, there's a problem admirers, and there's problem creators,
Oh,
right?
good. Okay, right.
Yeah. And the problem creators, I mean, you know who they are. So the people who fix problems, the people who complain about problems, and the people who create them.
Mm-hmm.
And in every job I've ever been in, there's always those three people.
Yeah,
And
100%.
and how do you navigate it? And it's the leader that is able to navigate through it. Right?
Decision making, right? It was about 5 years ago when I realized that decision making is a skill. Like, it is a valid skill set. And I don't think everyone's born with it, because I watch people go back and forth between indecision and weighing their options and admiring the problems versus like actually
Right.
looking towards them. So I know this is a loaded question, but let's shoot, right?
Yeah.
How do we make decisions?
Yeah. Um, this is there's it's amazing. There are two things that are critical for the success of any company, no matter how big the company is.
Mm-hmm.
One is decision making, and the other is being able to interview and hire great people.
Sure.
And those two things, companies never teach anybody how to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just assumed you know how to make a good decision, you know how to hire people.
Mm-hmm.
So decision making, well, first of all, we make, I forget the number, something like 30,000 decisions a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Get up, what do I wear? Which sock do I put on first?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. The best way to make a decision is to first understand where you want to go
Okay.
and have a lot of clarity on this is who I want to be in a year
Yeah.
or in 5 years. And in order to be that person, what do I need to be now? What do I need to do now in order to go there? So as long as you have that framework,
Right.
decisions are really hard. And the people who can't make decisions are the ones who don't have that framework.
Mm.
And like I always say, the most important thing is let's figure out what your goal is. And let's figure out, it might be who you are in
Yeah.
that goal. It might be where you are. It might be how much money you have, whatever it is. But whenever you have to make a decision, think of that goal. And
Mm.
what would that person do? What decision would that person make to get
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Interestingly enough, though, I found that well, there are particular people that I have in mind when I'm saying this, and they know who they are if they're listening, right? So what I found is that even though they may know what their goals are, what I've observed, and they don't agree, right? But I've observed this over time. What I'm seeing consistently is that they are trying too much to control the outcomes, so it leads to indecision because they think, okay, I know what I want, but every decision that I make leading up to that, they're trying to like jimmy rig it so that they guarantee they can get it because they don't want to make the wrong decision. And it's like you don't trust yourself enough to pivot or reassess or decide again if it's not working out. But how do you get that person out of that feedback loop where they are consistently trying to control outcomes? And you absolutely cannot. All you can control is what you do.
Right. And that I can feel that person. I don't
Okay.
know who exactly you're talking about, but I
Yeah.
know who I hear when I see that.
Right.
And listen, control is a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because you can create all the plans you want. You create plan A as deep as you want. And if you can't go to plan B through Z,
Mhm.
it's not going to work. You're not going to get to your goal. And I find that the people who are trying to control to that level, there's something about them that they're scared to let go of that makes it most difficult for them to just stay true to the path, but be flexible in how you get there.
Okay.
You know, there's I talk about or I've written about the idea of here to there, right? Like every company and every person, you're here right now, and you're here is who you are, what the environment is around you, who you surround yourself with, and there is where you want to go to,
Mhm.
right? And it's never a straight line from here to there. The path curves, there are offshoots, there are dead ends, there's cliffs,
Yeah.
and in order to get there and get that path, you kind of need the map is your strategy, is like your framework of the framework might be my values. All
Yeah.
right. I don't want to lie. So my values are, if I need to make a decision, I need to try to be honest with myself. And that's just an example, right? There might be other things. And it's, again, understanding all that stuff
Mhm.
helps get rid of the I have to control the path,
Mm.
because it ain't gonna work
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. So fear at the end of the day.
Yes,
There's
fear,
some
fear of
underlying
something.
there's some
Yeah,
underlying fear that needs to be addressed. Are you
absolutely.
someone that helps that person get to that underlying fear?
I am people. I listen. I'm not a therapist by any means, but I'm. Some people I work with call me the leadership therapy, because listen, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, right? So uh, it is. I could tell people, okay, here's how you make the decision. Here's the right decision. But
Right.
that's not going to help them, right? The reason is, okay, you're trying to control it. Why are you trying to control it? What are you scared of?
Right.
Why are you scared of that? Right? Let's reframe that in a way that gets you more of what you want and helps you learn how to get over that fear. So yeah, I that's kind of all I do, pretty
Mm.
much, is I hold up a mirror to people and like, here's your ugly, right? Like, let's look at your ugly and
Yeah.
let's be okay with it and work through
Yeah, I have two people I need to send them your information because it's
it.
just honestly like I realized that I'm not fit to support them in the way that they need to be supported. It's just I'm not the person. That's okay. I'm all right with that.
Yep.
But I also see how they've held and hold their lives back because of indecision. Like it's just every decision just seems like it's this earth-shattering, life-altering decision. And I'm just like, and in my mind, I'm just like, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it's
Right.
not that simple for them. And I understand it. And I've learned, like I used to get frustrated by it, but I understand that there's something there. It's just I can't uncover it, or maybe I'm not the one to help them do it. So I just kind of let it go. But that's definitely a thing that I have seen. And to your next point about problem solving, right? So let's assume you can make a decision and then you get to the point where you can now problem solve. I used to sell the speech about, it used to be problem, question mark, solve it, then profit, because everything that we experience in our in the world is really either manufactured solution because we didn't know we had a problem, or they created a problem to sell us a solution, or because it's a solution that we needed, right? Penicillin,
Mhm.
computers, Zoom,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you're in
Yeah.
LA, I'm in Charlotte, and we're connecting. So
Right.
how do we get people from the place where they're looking at things? And I don't have you ever read the book The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday?
No, but I love the name.
Yeah, I'll send
I'll
you.
read it.
Yeah, I'll send you a
Yeah.
copy. he kind of talks about that. How do we get people from just complaining, which is not a bad thing, because if I find myself complaining, I'm like, oh, there's an unsolved problem that needs to be met, right? But how do you get people
Right.
to kind of make that shift from, wait, I'm experiencing something that's unfavorable, to let me see how I can solve this, and then possibly solve it for other people?
Yes, I immediately think of a few people that I see stuck in that, and oftentimes, I've worked with I work primarily with women, and there are a couple I think of who were just unhappy in their jobs, like so unhappy. They were all they did was complain,
Right.
and they didn't look for other jobs. They
Mhm.
just wanted to sit there and complain.
Right.
And so, I sat with them and I'm like, well, what would it look like if it was right? And describe it to me if it was better.
Mhm.
Okay, what can you do to affect that right now?
Mhm.
And they actually come up with a list of things that can affect it.
Mhm.
Like, okay, you've got a choice. Like, the choice is yours,
Yeah.
and nobody is doing this to you. So you can create a positive attitude and do the things you just said to fix them,
Mhm.
or you can sit and complain and get nothing done.
Yeah.
And if you want to sit and complain and get nothing done, that's fine. Eventually, you're either going to quit or be fired,
Yeah.
or you can change your attitude and potentially get promoted and make more money.
Mhm.
So, you know, you do what you want to do.
Question: what if someone hits you with a I don't know what I can do to change my circumstances?
Then I help them figure it out, right?
Mm.
Because there's always something you could do. And so I've led salespeople before, so I grew up with a sales background,
Okay.
and the thing I always cringe with is when I say, "What's happening with the sale?" and a salesperson says, "Well, we're just waiting to hear." No, you're never just waiting to hear back, right?
Right.
What are you doing to make it happen? And that is the same in life,
Mm.
right? Like the people who are whoever you admire,
Mm.
whatever person out there you want to be, they still have 24 hours in a day. They have the same 24 hours you do, right? And the difference in what they're doing and what you're doing is the choices they make and the attitude they're going into it with,
Right.
right? They know what they want to be and how they want to grow, and they're choosing to lean into that and
Mm.
to take chances. And if those chances don't work, to pivot and change, to try to figure out what does work and keep iterating until it hits.
Right.
And um, and so, listen, I don't expect everybody to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers.
Right.
But the best way to figure out answers is to talk to somebody else,
Right.
right? Whether it's a friend or you, whatever,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times I find that the complainers, the ones who don't want to problem solve, they just like being in their own mud, right? And complaining like,
Yeah.
everybody's terrible. Everybody sucks at this.
Right.
And like, it's not going to get anybody anywhere.
Yeah. The reason I ask this, and it's a double-edged sword, and I can see both sides of it, which is why it's kind of hard to kind of work around it sometimes, is because as a minority, we experience a lot of challenges that we shouldn't have to, just because we're minorities, right? And
Yep.
and I can understand and empathize, of course, because I'm a minority and I'm a woman. I'm double, let's call it double minority for the sake of it, right? So
Yep.
as a woman, you're experiencing some things, and then as a minority, you're experiencing others. And it's easy to complain about those things because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it makes life 10 times harder in certain instances, right? Because you could have the same, like, for example, if I were to go apply for a job and I had the same credentials and more, I might not be hired because they're not looking for me, right? As a representative of that position. And I could easily complain about that, and that would be valid. But also, would that be an excuse to keep trying? No. Or to stop trying? No, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's where it's so interesting to kind of keep, as a leader, as someone who is leading, to kind of keep people inspired and motivated, because at the end of the day, yes, I understand that this is going to be 10 times harder in most instances, especially as entrepreneurs. capitalizing businesses, trying to get people, trying to find things to get people motivated and galvanized behind your ideas, but then you can't stop trying. You just can't. That's not an option.
Right. Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying never complain in your life.
Right. No, no,
Listen,
no. Right.
I'd be a hypocrite.
Right.
But you made the great point of, does it make you stop trying or not?
Right.
And absolutely, as you know, the double minority, like, yeah, you are hit harder and
Right.
in so many different ways, and not always blatantly, right? Like, and not always consciously by people.
Right.
And in fact, it's why I work. Uh, I've just fallen into working with
Right.
females because a lot of the misogyny is not conscious.
Right.
But um, listen, when I always rant about salary ranges
Right.
and how uh, gender biased and racist they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because white men will always negotiate harder,
Always. Right.
and yeah, and people of color and women will not negotiate as much. Boom, you got a gender gap, you got a pay gap right there. And
Right.
it's just not, there's so many ways that it's unconsciously not fair. And but nothing's going to change. Like, nobody's going to change it for you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
People will change it with you,
Yeah.
but that requires you to want to change as well.
Right. And that's the piece that kind of is really hard as a, and I'm just speaking for me as a leader, right? That's the part that's really hard sometimes to kind of communicate, because then it puts the burden on the minority to not only have to experience the disadvantages, but then also have to fight for their own, in a way, like they just don't want to fight. And I don't want to fight either sometimes, like to have to fight for that, but I understand that I still do it. And it's still that burden of, hey, this is not fair. Hey, you should be paying me more here. Hey, why is this person getting paid 10 times more than me? Like, so certain things like that, but it's just the onus gets put on them too. And that's where it becomes difficult as a leader to say, hey, this is just what it is. You want more, you got to fight for it. You got to fight this.
Right. And
You know what I mean?
yeah, and listen, I'm gonna go a little deeper on this. I mean, the reality, as we know, is, this country was founded on rich white men, and that hasn't changed.
Right.
It's changed a little,
Right.
but the fact is, that's still what it's about.
Right.
And it's about, we fight wars for money, so mostly rich white men can get richer, and uh, internally and externally, right? We fight wars internally and we fight wars externally,
Right.
and um, there's a pay gap difference. And with that difference in pay, there becomes difference in everything else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe in the millennials and Gen Z. I believe,
I do.
I see my daughter and I see that there she doesn't see color, and she doesn't see sexual orientation or any of that stuff. It's just humans.
Right.
And we live in LA, so it's more of a melting pot here than others. But I hope it's going to get better, and I hope that everybody will have more power. But the fact is, yes, you do. I have an easier time than you do,
Right.
just by nature of how I look versus how you look.
Right.
And that now, does it mean I need you to always be the one fighting? No,
Mhm.
but we need to find allies, right?
Right.
Like, and those allies need to stand up. Like, silence is just as bad as, speaking against. So I, it's yeah, it's tough, but it doesn't mean that you can't fight, right?
Right.
Like, or fight for yourself and believe in yourself. And uh, yeah, I can only talk from my perspective.
No, no, I understand. Yeah, it's just interesting being a leader in this space, especially now, because it is, what I'm finding is that people are getting very discouraged. So it is like, okay, I can tell, like, let's say I adopted your framework. Like, we're going to talk, Jeff is going to license me out his framework, and I'm going to start applying the Jeff methodology. And I could just see the pushback and resistance because where they'll get stopped at certain points. You know what I mean? And then it's,
Where?
definitely controlling outcomes, definitely finding it difficult to validate what their decisions are, because when they go to validate it, they'll see the barriers as much as they see the opportunities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely, they're definitely big challenges, right? And big walls that may or may not be able to get through. And so I'd say, I was going to say everybody has obstacles, but it's not the same, right?
Mm.
Like some people, not at all. In fact, many people's obstacles seem just like a speed bump. And others are, the Berlin Wall that you're just not going to get through.
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean you can't have goals and try and still make things good and figure out ways to change your part of the world.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and it's not going to change without the attitude, the right attitude, because the right attitude is going to attract the people who are going to be allies
Right.
and can help break down those walls.
It's true.
Right? And I think relationships are everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I believe in karma. I believe. Listen, the focus mate we went on, I actually canceled a different focus mate 15 minutes before because I ran into something, and then I rescheduled, and next thing I know, I'm with you. And the first 2 minutes we talk, I'm blown away of like, all right, we were meant to kind of connect with each other.
Yeah.
And so I believe in the attitude you take the world is conspiring to help you. It's conspiring to work in your favor.
Yeah.
And will attract people that, as long as you're open to opportunity, how can you use those allies to get further?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So you talked about the validation piece. How do we validate some of the decisions that we want to make or that we think we're making?
Right. In business, it's asking for feedback.
Mhm.
When we talk about starting a company,
Mhm.
and I actually started 4 companies as an adult. I had some stuff as a kid,
Mhm.
but I started 4 companies as an adult. 3 of them I grew, and each of them was acquired by a public company.
That's
One
awesome.
of them I grew, and it went out of business.
Mhm.
And so, in each of them, it started with an idea.
Mhm.
I got this idea. I think it can work,
Mhm.
and so I started asking people,
Okay.
"What do you think of this? What do you think of that?"
Mhm.
Uh, and of course, not everybody's going to say it's great,
Yeah.
right? Because nobody has the vision in my head.
Mhm.
But then you try to test it out. If it's a website, you do a quick little MVP. My last company was a website. It was a SaaS company. And
Mhm.
so I built a site
Mhm.
around it. That was very basic, and it was nothing like the end product. I
Mhm.
thought it was,
Yeah.
but I realized when I built it that it's not what people wanted.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so I took that feedback and continued to iterate until you find out what people want. It's like in sports, right? You want to be a basketball player,
Mhm.
like you're not all of a sudden a great basketball player.
Yeah.
You got to go out and figure out what's your shot, what's your strength.
Mhm.
And you're out there every day trying to figure it out. You're playing against people. You're going to play differently against different people.
Yeah.
And it's continually iterating until you feel locked in the right
Yeah.
spot and get traction.
That's so interesting. I'm finding that a lot of people are like, it's hard for them to innovate because they're kind of married to the original idea. So they're not like pivoting and kind of going with where either technology is, where the opportunities are, right? Because the original
Yeah.
vision was iteration A. but really what's going to bring you to the goal is iteration Z.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I would say to any entrepreneur who thinks, the early stage entrepreneur, who
Mhm.
thinks that their idea is the one that's going to happen, if you stick to that idea hardcore, you will fail.
Mm,
Period.
interesting.
Right.
Right.
Slack
Yeah.
was, it's a gaming company. They
Yeah.
just needed a way to communicate.
Yeah.
And same with Twitter, and same with, all and most every other big company, right?
Yeah.
Um, Google was a search engine, wasn't advertising.
Mm,
And listen, Gmail was just done on the side by somebody. They
yeah.
weren't an email provider. So it's always about, like, if you can't iterate, don't get into the entrepreneurial business.
Mm,
Uh, it's just not going to work.
yeah. It's so funny. Someone told me, not a business owner, has no business acumen whatsoever, but it's just interesting to see like kind of the conversations people have because the first iteration of the business, I was kind of getting feedback, seeing what people would like, what they would want, and then I realized I'd had to iterate in another way, and they were just like, "You're unstable," and I'm like, "Okay, good. I like that's actually a great compliment."
Yeah, right.
If you knew what you just said to me, that's actually good because it means
Yeah,
that I'm evolving with what the needs are of the consumer. I'm not just staying in one. It's like a very fixed mindset. So interesting, interesting. All right. Is there anything else that
yeah.
you think we should know as far as being good leaders is concerned?
I think it's always self-reflection is huge. How is what I'm doing, is it energizing people or is it demotivating them?
Yeah.
And the, the love you take is equal to the love you make, right? The karma you put out there is equal to the karma you're going to get back.
Mhm.
And you want the way to get people to want to follow you is to empower them
Yeah.
and to ask for their opinions
Yeah.
and listen to their opinions. And I think that's undervalued in the impact it has in helping leaders grow and helping businesses grow,
Mhm.
right? And as I say to a lot of leaders in later stage companies, not early stages, your goal is to be expendable. You
Right.
want to not matter. You want to be able to leave the company and do better.
Yeah. True.
And as long as you can do that, empower people, teach people to know more than you do,
Mhm.
then you're doing a great job. And it'll come back, in big bagfuls of whatever you're looking for bagfuls of.
Yeah. True. Thank you, Jeff. I think this was I think for me as someone who's in a leader, right? Kind of just happen to fall into it. But you're saying everybody is kind of in their own way, but leading
Yeah.
other women, I appreciate the perspective because I think some of that information will definitely be able to help me make better decisions when I am leading who wants to be led by me. Um, so thank you for that. And I'm hoping that other people hear it and kind of apply this information to themselves, just understanding where their shortcomings may be, but then also where the opportunities are. So Jeff, if anyone wanted to reach out to you and get a hold of you for a consultation or to help them with their business, how would they do that?
I'd say start with my newsletter, thebestleadershipnewsletter.com.
Yeah.
And there are links there to YouTube channel and everything else. Also hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. Or I'm on all the channels,
Okay.
social wise. So you could find me anywhere.
Yeah, I'll be sure.
But yeah,
Yeah, I'll be sure to leave them in the comments in the description.
awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Of course, it was a pleasure.
Right back at you.